like governments are great for dealing with, like multinational corporations and warfare and all that other kind of stuff. Government doesn't have a place in a community garden.
That's
Like,
right.
because like the key word here is community. That's what makes societies function. And like, I think New York is a great example of where it's like, I was actually born in New York. I lived there for like 8 years. I
Cool.
don't like it there at all. I hate it. I don't ever want to return. I don't want to go back to my family because you live in a city of 8 million people. And I've never felt more alone in my entire life than being in New York City. It
Yeah.
is the most isolating experience because everything, because there's no communal anything. The only thing that's communal is the subway, and it's disgusting. And
But
like,
yeah, Subway's gross. But
yeah, and like when I lived in Germany, bro, like I lived there for 2 years. So I rode the trains everywhere. The train costs like €5 a ride, and it's clean and it's nice and it works. And that was when it really hit me like, bro, this can work. You could have public transportation that's effective, timely, and clean, and like you want to be there, and it doesn't feel like shit. And then the subway's like just repulsive, and like, oh yeah, but it
Is
comes
that
back
just
to the
due to
fact that,
population density?
hmm?
So
What
is
is
that
that?
just population density? Like, what do you think was different between, is it cultural or is it just the sheer amount of numbers that are packed
I don't
together?
think it's a numbers game because you got big cities in Europe, big cities, like, and they function just fine. I think it's more of a funding issue. Like I remember I was on the subway and I saw someone had carved their name into it and they signed it. It was from the 80s. Bro,
Jeez.
that seat has been sitting there for 40 years. No
and
one's
it's
ever
still
even buffed out that scratch. Like I think it's a function of like how much
respect.
like money you put into taking care of public infrastructure and like
Mhm.
public spaces. There's no public spaces in New York. Well, there's Central Park. There's a handful of other ones, but like there's there's no real community in New York because there's literally no space for it. And like the community garden thing, like there needs space for that for a community to happen. You can't make community happen. People have to like you can't force people to come together, but you can give them the space and the freedom to figure that out. And like the community gardens you're talking about are a great example of that. When you just let people like you're growing vegetables, you're not making a nuclear reactor. You just let people grow the vegetables. And like cities have existed for thousands of years in like populations of like hundreds of thousands of people. And there was no shipping and food back then. So people grew their own food and they shared with each other and they didn't where they eat. So like it works. It's doable. And the greatest example of all that is Hawaii and other islander nations. Those people lived there for thousands of years. There was no getting away from each other. And they
No.
lived in like not like perfect harmony, but they got along with each other and their environment because if they didn't, they would die out. So it's feasible to have human society in a way that isn't like constantly full of strife and conflict. But this, what we're doing right now, is not the way, or
Well,
not all the way.
you know how you said, um, I don't know, remember which one of you said it, but earlier you were talking about the way the community is, that they would have to have this was an economic thing, that if it was, I don't remember the exact quote, but it was like big and small as far as it's not changing globally, it's changing locally. I think that's
Uh,
what you said.
think globally, act locally.
Okay, so I feel like, for example, like I told you, I live in the valley, but um, we purchased. There's a place called Imperfect Foods, and it's a farm. So, but they sell things cheaper than I would get from the grocery store, and they're a hell of a lot more fresh. But some of them are just with the word of imperfect,
Yeah,
right? The shape
the
or
weird
whatever.
looking.
Right. So, I feel like I'm doing my part by uh buying from, and that's what I meant by, I know they're regulated, but I'm buying it from, they're like not maybe 10, 15 miles from me, right? If I wanted meat, there's a place that I can order from that is probably 50 miles from me, but they have a slaughterhouse, right? And that stuff comes to you where it's red, like if you really wanted meat, it's like really, you could tell it's meat. It's not, um, injected with nitrogen. You know, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like
Um,
flabby and just not appetizing.
right. But your money is going in your own community.
Yes,
Right.
that's a big part.
Right. So that's what I mean by like when I was saying like the little cities of or sections of them, because it's like, oh, okay, I buy from Imperfect Foods. So you're now my idea for like the because this I was trying to relate this to the permaculture. My idea was that if you know that uh each section needs each other, you're able, it's almost like you like Malachi, I understand when you said, oh, big business, you're gonna end up, you know, it's a fight you can't win. But when you give them their own section and you say, okay, you're gonna supply to this sect, you're gonna supply to this sect, then that means the local farmers don't have to stress because they're gonna supply to the people they relate to most, the ones that are workers like them and some that are below. Then you have the people that want to say, oh, I wouldn't shop at Food for Less. I only shop at, you know, this hoity-toity place, right? Well, that's where the like the affluent people are. So you have those businesses over there. So everybody still gets a piece of their pie. It's, and no one is saying you can't go visit the other place. It's just that you're able to say, hey, we're starting from the ground, and then if the middle class want this from the farm as well, there's a farm near them too. It's just a different level of farm. So you might have like caged animals where the lower class was, but you had free, you know, free reign where the middle and upper class are. And that's basically by space, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, but is that I'm trying to understand the permaculture and people. Like, would that make sense?
I think what you're describing is just like small communities of like people, and then they're connected to each other, but they don't rely on each other implicitly. And then you have localized production, so you have people relying on each other, and then they just hold each other accountable. And
Mhm.
that's how societies function. That's how community is created. Like community is a series of relationships and relying on each other for different things. It's how that happens. So,
Yeah.
like, yeah, I think what you're saying makes sense. Like, you're not
Yeah.
segregating. Well, hmm? Go ahead,
Yeah,
Malachi.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, you're not segregating people, but
No,
you're also not making them. You're not making people dependent on each other where it's not feasible for them to be dependent. Because like that's
right.
where we're at now. Like like you get like you get like have you ever seen that meme or that post? It's like this dude in England. He's got a can of pears, and it says like grown in Argentina and canned in Thailand, and he's like,
Mhm.
bro, pears grow here.
Right.
Yeah. Why are we doing
Why?
this?
Yeah,
Right.
like why are we doing this? And like that like globalization is it's good for things like technology. It's very bad for things like food. Like it makes sense for things like, like fucking computers, but moving pairs like that across the planet to get back to a place where it grows is grossly ineffective.
Mhm.
And like what I always thought is that like cities should cities should be able to grow their own food
Mhm.
and
Hmm.
themselves. You don't got to do everything yourself, but like things like food, you should be able to do on your own, and that's going to vary from place to place. Like what you eat in Missouri shouldn't be exactly the same as what you eat in LA because you
Right.
live in the desert. And doesn't mean you gotta have bad food. It just means you have something different.
Correct.
And like I could get into that. I could get into that forever. Like there's a whole biome of delicious things you can grow in the desert in a reasonable amount of time. But like you can't. One of those things is not going to be apple trees.
Yeah.
You know
Right.
what I mean? Like you're not going to eat the same shit here that you do over there. And trying to do that is how we got these problems.
Yeah.
Well,
You know what I mean?
if you think about this, I teach this in school. I tell the kids to show you how corrupt we are as like as a world is if you were in Egypt, they grew, they were only able to grow certain things. That's how their pyramid of food became. Where we are, we had grain, right? And chickens and what have you. That's how they made the pyramid. They're not going to make the pyramid, oh, you should have fish because it's a lot more healthy than wheat. No, because there's more wheat here. So they're going to tell you this is what you need to eat when you really
Yeah,
don't need it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yes.
So wherever you are, I see why they transport things. But yeah, realistically, look, I don't need Florida oranges. I don't need stuff from Mexico when there's stuff right here.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
know, and if that was the case, you're cutting down on pollution because you don't need to be transporting things by truck all over the place. So
Like one third of all food production on the planet goes bad because it spoils on the way to where you're selling
to
it.
where it's going, yeah.
You could increase global food production by a third if you just did it locally. No
Yeah.
technology, no crazy silver bullet. Just grow the shit where you're going to eat it,
Yeah,
and you have a third more food.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's a crazy concept.
I think the issue, to get back to Mr. Todd's question,
Mhm.
about like how to make something like that happen, right? With the localized, pocketed, interdependent communities. Um, I think the key to that is one thing that we're kind of struggling with. At least I know that. I mean, based on T's story about his current job, I'm sure that he's seeing kind of what's happening as well. And it's ironic because we talk about the individualism of America, but at the same time, when you talk to younger generations, at least I've done a couple of talks to students, and you ask them what they want to do, what they want to be with their lives, and they're all pretty similar. I mean, it's probably the same for the past as well. You know, firefighter, police officer, whatever. Now it's like they want to be YouTube content creators, etc. And there's room for education and all those things, but I think that in order like for us to develop these communities, there have to be community experts. There have to be people who
Mm.
understand what kind of plants will grow in the area, that understand the social dynamics between the local racial communities. You know, like they're not always the same. You know, you come to Hawaii, you know, there's very few Hispanic people. You have to understand the difference between the Japanese, Korean, and Chinese, and how they interact, and what those communities are going to do in a circumstance where they're dependent on each other. If you don't have people that understand that and are willing to share that information, and then the community is never going to be able to form. You know, how are you going to tell people? You ask people about pineapples in Hawaii, they think that pineapples are native here, because they're pushed in the culture and TV and whatnot. But that's not the case at all. Um,
Aren't yours from Mexico?
No, wait, south of south of the Amazon, the landscape
All
south of the
comes from Brazil.
yeah, southern Brazil.
yeah,
The and Malachi, what you were saying, like kids want to be YouTubers because they watch YouTube all day.
Hmm.
exactly.
Children want to
And it's
be what they
easy.
see. It's what
Yeah.
no, it's not that it's easy, it's what they see. Like it's
Yeah,
what they see all day. Like if you put kids around like I don't know, like if you put them in a bike shop,
mhm,
they're gonna want to work on bikes because they can like YouTube is powerful, but nothing on the internet can be as powerful as real life. So
mhm,
like it's like you said, Malcolm, like you need those community experts who like know how to do shit. Then those people need to then like interact with the kids and develop actual relationships with them. And then that person matters to that kid more than a screen, a face on a screen.
mhm.
It has to start from within. Like each person has to be able to say, I can do this and I will do this. But I only see that happening when they say we only have 300 days left unless we,
Urgency.
you know what I mean? Like unless we do this. People
Mhm,
aren't going to band together because they don't take it seriously. And I still blame that on media because it's the cycle is like how you said the YouTube. It's still fed to you.
mhm.
You go to school, you're teaching YouTube. You know,
Yeah.
you're like I teach. If I can't relate to the kids or they don't understand me, I put on something from YouTube, whether it's Khan Academy for math or whatever it is. So it's still being programmed, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and the more technology based we get, I think there's going to be less care for the planet.
Yeah.
That's
That's it.
that's we're gonna say Malachi, sorry.
Oh yes, no, it's interesting. Just the idea that it's kind of hard to escape. it's a problem you notice with a lot of parents nowadays. I don't know if you've seen, young parents, but they struggle with, the same thing that parents have always struggled with all throughout time, but now they have a tool that will almost instantly settle the kids, right? It's like if I do this iPad, it will reduce all of the chaos in my life. And parents are often pushed to the brink. But in the past, we've relied on community. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm gonna hand them off to grandma,
That's
and
exactly what I was
finally
gonna
I get
say.
a break.
Yeah.
Or I hand them off to uncle. Like even when I go hang out with my nieces and nephews, like I show up, and now the parents can take a breather because they're running circles around me. And that's kind of a role that we have in our communities, but not everybody has that luxury anymore. That used to be the default, and now there's so many atomized people who are living in apartment complexes far away from any family member they know. They don't know their neighbors. And so who else can they rely upon except for the technology that gives them a break? And it might seem small, when you multiply this over millions of cases all across the planet, then you start to get this collective obsession with technology that is unhealthy. Go ahead, Mr. T.
Yeah, like I grew up like that. Like my mom came here from Honduras, so like isolated from family and
Mhm.
like just, raising two boys on her own. It's just like you look at a screaming kid and I always wonder like how did people survive in like prehistoric times? Like if a baby starts screaming at 3 a.m. in the jungle or in on the savannah, how
Man,
did
you
a
want a club.
hyena, yeah, or like how did a hyena not eat them? Like, you know what I mean? And like, or like, how did parents in prehistory not just strangle their children because they're
T,
annoying?
hold on a second. Hold on a second. I think you might have struck on something. We talk about, I made jokes before about evolutionary history, and Nietzsche has his own theory about humans becoming more and more as we live together closer. We had to start kind of hiding how we felt, which is how our conscious developed and intensified, because you couldn't always be direct about it because now there's a hierarchy, and if you get kicked out of the community, then you'll die, because you can't live
Exactly.
alone. So we became more neurotic as a defense mechanism of literally living amongst humans and more humans and more complex relationships. But one thing that might have driven us there, at least one element, one part of the equation, was the fact that our children were screaming. Like you can't live in a small band, and the kids are wailing and drawing predators to our encampment. So now we have to build walls. We have to sharpen up
Yeah.
and to start a watch and have somebody, out there. We got to use fire to keep everything, the animals away, because the
Yes.
kids
And
are so loud.
But
It might have
that's
been
why,
a driver.
no, but that's what I was getting at, is like the answer was community. And like I think that's why people like there's people who are just like nocturnal. Like my girlfriend, she is nocturnal. She
Yeah.
is awake. Her natural hours of awakeness are like 1 p.m. to like 5 a.m. And the function of that brain, of that circadian rhythm, is that you had someone in the band or in the tribe up at all hours. The nocturnal people tended the fires. They kept the dark at bay, quite literally, and their simple presence and tending the fires kept the predators at bay. So when the kids started wailing at 3 a.m., that's why they didn't get eaten, because you weren't alone. And
Wow.
like community is meant like that. That's why people struggle with single parents, because that's not how nature works. You know who's single parents in nature? Bears, mountain lions. We're not bears or mountain lions. We're not meant to exist alone or in groups of like two or three. We're meant to live in communities. That's how shit works. Even the Amish, when they build a house, there's like 20 of them building the house at once. The idea that one man can build a house is a pipe dream. It's an anomaly. Like everything we do have done through all of human history up until like World War II has been communal. And like individualism is great and it's undoubtedly brought all kinds of great things, but we've lost sight of just how like important community is, because at the end of the day, we're a social species. We're
Yeah.
supposed to be together. This idea that like, yeah, anyway, sorry.
no,
You
it's
have a
okay.
That's
I
perfect.
just, I was gonna say I have a thought. I still think that I agree with you guys, but I still think that caves, is which why they went in the caves, and fire
Oh
was
yeah,
how they dealt with it. But
yeah.
I do also believe that how many kids, I think that's why you had such a small population, because how many kids were born and then their necks were broken because it took them a few hundred times to see, oh, when we let the kid's head go, they stop moving, you know. Um, they had to tell the next person, and that's their community, like, oh, hold here. And then some of it is instinctual, you know, they know they have to breastfeed or, um, you know what I mean? They're hunter-gatherer. But I'm sure that there was plenty of stories where Johnny walked into the fire and became, you know, fricassee, you know. Um,
Theory that human civilization that our entire race was created by pyromaniacs. Because like
Yeah.
imagine you're a cave person, you live in the woods. You know what I mean?
mhm,
Fire is the most powerful force in nature. It just burns everything. Who
mhm.
was fucking around with fire? Who was the first monkey to be like, "Hey, yo, this shit is cool"? And it's
Yeah.
like, "What are you doing? You're going to kill us all." And he's like, "No, but it's so cool." And just like the
Mhm.
first ones who figured out how to work fire were pyromaniacs. There's no other
Yeah,
explanation for it.
It had
There's
yeah,
no other.
it had an irrational love for it, and I think that's another thing. When you look back at history, there's a story. I can't remember what it's called or what the name of it is, but it basically talks about the insanity of humans. Right, humanity itself is a little bit twisted, and that allows us to walk into situations that other creatures would never go into, because we believe in either a higher power or life after death or things that are larger than ourselves, like community. Like the idea of community, it's a concept, right? It's a useful concept, and it inarguably, or arguably, it's probably the fundamental concept for our species because, like you said, we're not bears, we're not cougars, we don't have claws. All we really have is our own wits and our ability to band together to create magic, you know. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. I think that conversations like this, like coming together as experts, as people who are curious, as people who want better for the world and discussing these things is how it starts. And then, you know, like Mr. T said, we go out there and we do what we can locally. And eventually things will spiral upwards into a more beautiful world. And I think that all of the bad that we've seen, you know, the poisoning of the soil. I took over Punchbowl Memorial a little while ago, last year as the horticulturist, and I went to the people who are in charge of it, and I told them that I didn't want to do it the old way because I saw, as the gardener, I saw what happens when you just dump fertilizer, just pounds and pounds and pounds of fertilizer into the ground. Um,
just
you're
burns it.
you're poisoning the world. You're poisoning the earth. Eventually, nothing will grow, and the only way for things to grow now is that you just dump more fertilizer. And of course, out of expedience, they've sacrificed the microbiome of the whole crater. And I told them that if I was going to be in charge, that I didn't want to run it that way. We've got an agricultural scientist working with us to slowly restore the soil piece by piece. You know, we're taking all different kinds of chemicals. We're taking phosphorus. We're taking biochar. We're using foliar application for fertilizer on the leaves. We're using algae. We're using all these different things that are here. They're grown here to try and restore the soil, the life of the soil. And we've done it so far in a couple of the areas up at the memorial, and it can be done. And one thing that I told you know, the customers that it's more of it, a victory to do it this way, not just for us individually, but for our species to look for a better way to do it, to try and return to a harmony with nature. And they're on board. You know, we have the money, we have the time. I think there's no excuse to not try. So that whole we literally sit atop the city. I don't know if you've ever been to Hawaii, but Punch Bowl is above
Yeah.
Honolulu. And I
My
think
wife's
that,
from there.
yeah, it's a beautiful place. And I think that using this place as an example of what can be done in something that's been ruined by negligence and a long history of expedience. If we can reverse that process, it'll serve as an example in almost a literal city on the hill.
Go ahead.
And the other thing too is like when you do things like that, like you're leaving something behind for future generations. Like when you restore an environment like that, it's like, well, like this will be here when you're gone. Like once, like there's most environments have like a threshold where like it's a lot of work to get it working right, but once it's working right, the amount of work drops off.
Exactly.
And I was thinking about explaining some of the things that Malachi's talking about, and the soil is alive, and we all know that. But basically, there's a quote from a Tool song that I really like, which is "Life feeds on life."
Mhm.
And so, like, in order to grow, to bring life back to the soil, you must put life into the
To the
soil.
soil, yeah.
Do that with making compost. And composting does not have to be rocket science. I created gallons of compost on a third-story balcony. We using nothing but Amazon boxes and leftover food that went bad in my fridge. That's literally all you need. Like the short version is 1 part food, like leftover food, 3 parts shredded cardboard. And when you start out, you get a big old handful of the blackest, most good smelling soil you can find, and you mix it all in there. And you mix all that up, and then you put it somewhere outside. It must be nothing smells as bad outside as it does inside. When shit goes bad in your fridge, it stinks because it's in a little enclosed bubble. When you put that stuff outside under some dirt, it goes away. Like if you put your face in it, it's gonna stink. But like I had this thing 10 feet from my bed in Hawaii. No one even knew it was there. I'd have people over, they didn't even know it was there because like it doesn't smell unless you put your face into it. And once it's going, you can compost anything. I composted Thanksgiving turkeys in a in a in a in a 30-gallon plastic tote container on a concrete balcony. Within
What
four
about
months,
maggots?
huh? They're
What
gonna
about
be there.
maggots?
Oh yeah, they're there. You don't got to look at them. You put a lid on that thing, bro. Just don't look at them. Like it's fine. And like the flies don't hang out. They lay their eggs and they leave, and that's it. Again, this is why it's outside. Like it has to be outside so you don't deal with that shit. Like they come and they go, and that's it, dude. You don't gotta look at them all day. And like with gross stuff, you bury it. You bury it at least like 6 inches down so you don't have to smell it. The bugs can smell it and they come and they lay their eggs and they burrow down there and they deal with it and they go on with their day and you don't gotta look at it or smell it. The only thing I couldn't figure out to compost well was cooking oil and milk. Like, but I composted yogurt, I composted meat, I composted entire fish that my girlfriend caught in the ocean that went bad in the fridge, so I just put them in the ground. Like I composted everything and it all turned into compost. And and what I use because like the short another short version thing is there's green material there's and brown materials. So green materials are high in nitrogen, which is like leftover food, anything green. Brown materials is wood, cardboard because cardboard comes from wood. So or wood chips. You need a lot more brown than green because you need a lot of carbon to break down nitrogen. So that's why I said like 3 parts shredded cardboard, 1 part leftover food. Like it doesn't have to be exact, but so you combine these things, and they slowly they break down, and then you get compost, and it's really that simple. And you're making soil, and if it's in contact with the ground, like if you can do this in a hole in the ground, you get worms and all kinds of local critters all up in there that make it happen even faster. This one's a little gross, but like we moved here and I didn't want to bag up my dog's poop and throw it away. It just seems stupid. I'm like, how can this not break down in my yard? Like you tell me dog shit is radioactive and just never breaks down. I gotta throw the like what the hell was happening before we had a landfill? And so I dug a hole about 3 feet deep and about 2 feet wide. I started putting the dog poop in there all summer long. It never filled up. The bugs ate it. It just went away. And it didn't stink unless you were like over it because it's in air, so it doesn't stink. But like this is literal dog shit. I got a 75-pound dog and a 35-pound dog. You know what I mean? They shit every day. It goes in the hole, it goes away. That's it. That's it. And like, so the point is that like making compost and making soil, it can be rocket science. You can make it, you can make it as complicated as you want, but it does not have to be that hard at all. And then you
So
have great stuff to grow stuff in. Go on, I'm sorry.
no, I was gonna say, so I'm gonna give you guys two questions that you can educate me, the masses of what permaculture, how it would work in your opinions, in the sense of you're in Hawaii, you're in Missouri, and uh I'm in the city, right? So by your classification of it, the two questions I have is, one, I agree with you guys when it comes to you could try to how you were saying, well, my idea of the way the cities could be divided, that well, that there's a way. I like I said, I'm trying to, I don't know, have your quote 100%, but the way things are just done, I feel like there is a biosphere, there is a cycle of life, but the more we interject with pollution, with the plastics, with runoff, and just people that just don't care, it throws off that ecosystem, obviously. That's why we have the issue in the ocean, right? There's more plastic than I don't know how they can count this, but more plastic than uh fish. Well, if you have that, then to me things are not working the way they're supposed to work anymore. Therefore, the how when I said like the localization of it, instead of getting people that are in Alaska bringing us fish, you got people all around the Pacific that can just, fish and give it to your local people. So um I don't see alternatives to be a negative, because I think the cycle of life is already thrown off. So I don't, that's one thing with I want to ask you. And then the other one was, like I said, I'm more city based, you're more uh rural based, and you're in like tropic based, right? So how do you do your perma? How does that apply and connect us?
I guess I'll start since Mr. G's taking a walk. We have I always try my best to I stay away from teleology, which is this idea that there's some kind of grand plan, grand mission, you know? I don't know, I don't think I'm smart enough to know how things should go. I have my ideas about what I think would be good, and I try and work towards that good because I think that that's the only way to be moral, right? Is to have an idea of the good and to kind of pursue it with a little bit of hesitance to know that I'm not exactly sure what the right answer is. One good answer that I really resonate with, and once again I'm bringing up Nietzsche, is he has this idea that there's nothing that any human can do that can harm humanity. That we're all every compulsion in your body is a part of a larger system that you might not be able to understand or comprehend, but you have a role in this, and that's why you were born a human being, and everything you do is for the good of humanity, whatever that good is. It's impossible for us to fully encapsulate in our minds, because humanity is bigger than just one human mind. So it's impossible. It's made up of all of our minds, and all of those minds interacting together is what creates humanity. And so I understand, and I know that we've been driven, due to certain religions and certain circumstances throughout history to be destructive in a lot of ways. But I also truly believe that there's a homeostasis that comes with this whole thing, that the impulses rise and fall based on the response to the larger ecosystem. Like the very fact that people like us are here having these conversations is because there's an impulse in humanity also to try and protect the environment, And these are forces that are pushing and pulling, and they're not always equal. So at times it might be dramatically, expediency is important. We have all this money, all this resource. We have to save the world. We have to stop the Nazis. We have to feed as many people as possible. And then slowly we start to realize, oh, that strategy was not right. And more people stand up and say, no, we have to adjust. We have to move forward. We have to be more meticulous. We have to be more community based, et cetera, et cetera. And all these things are going to fluctuate. And in the end, if you just look at the numbers, like the size of human population, the last, 10,000 years has been incredible growth. And I think that all of these impulses have existed together always since the beginning of human interaction. And I think that dynamic will only lead to a higher and higher ascension of our species. That's just something that goes back to the conversation we've had before about my cosmic optimism. So I genuinely do believe that eventually there's no reason to not be optimistic if you just look at our track record. I think that we're upwards and outwards. When it comes to Hawaii specifically, one of the biggest problems we have is what stops us from being what we could be is the conflict of interest of the people who are invested in this island. There are the natives who clearly, the land is a part of them. There are people who are buying properties here. There's the military. There's foreign countries that come here to buy property to give advantages to their own people. I mean, Hawaii it's truly a jewel. There are plenty of beautiful places in the world, but Hawaii is very special. And because of that, it's like a beautiful woman. And there are so many people who want a piece
trying to get in there. Yeah.
Yeah. And that leads to difficulties in making this place what it could be for the people who live here. And that's never going to go away.
Not to cut you off, but I did a whole episode on if a country were not allowed to go to purchase land, they shouldn't be able to purchase it here.
I agree. I think that sets a good precedent because there are places that are our relationship is one-sided. But that's global politics. I'll watch that episode after this if you link it to me. But I think that there is a movement here to improve things and bring things back, to take things step by step, to plant more natives, to combat the invasives and for long-term soil health and all the good things that come with permaculture. The philosophy is developing, it's growing in popularity, and at least on the surface level. I mean, even the contract that I got recently, one of the key principles was that we had a holistic horticultural program that was sensitive to cultural and environmental ecosystem issues. Right, it was written in the contract that these things had to be considered, and I think that is a good sign of the future. Of course, sometimes it's just going to be lip service, but what can we do about that? All we can do is, like T says, is to think locally and act locally, and I think that's happening here more and more every day.
Go ahead.
So, what it would look like in Hawaii versus LA versus here is, for example, in Hawaii, grow less. You would have people like you wouldn't import as many apples because apples don't grow there very well, and you would eat more local food like breadfruit is really good. Well, actually, not that bad example. You could replace like bananas. Like you could have more bananas instead of apples because bananas grow very well. I did a whole thing about meat in Hawaii. There's the axis deer is a deer from Asia that was gifted to King Kamehameha back in like the 1800s, earlier maybe. And Kamehameha turned them loose on Maui, and I think Maui. And he said, "Look at these deer. Now my people can have these deer to eat whenever. Like this is good meat. This is good eating." And you fast forward to now, and because of laws meant to protect large native mammals here in North America that are now being imposed in Hawaii, you can't eat them. And so now there's literally that hundreds of thousands of deer on Maui and I think two other islands that like to say they destroy ecosystems and understanding. They they nude landscapes like locusts. Like they eat everything to the ground and then they die in droves. They die to the point that their bodies clog the waterways and poison the water. And these are edible deer. They're delicious. Like, and it's the only example I can think of where if Hawaiians could eat the deer, like if there was if the social policy and economic restraints were removed, like the environment will be better, the people will be happier, and everyone will make more money. That never happens. There's never a situation in which all three of those happen at once. And these deer are a great example of it. They're delicious. They're not native, so you can eat as many as you want, and the environment will only get happier about it. And it's local. So like that, like I would imagine in Hawaii, you would stop importing beef and you just start eating the deer that are already here.
On there, yeah.
It's
But
better
that's to
for
say
everyone.
people want to eat it.
Yeah, no, they do though. It's the short version is that the meat has to be humanely killed and then processed in a FDA approved way. And there's about 8 FDA approved slaughterhouses for the deer on Maui. And that is the bottleneck, is that it is in order to meet regulations that you need these facilities. The facilities when adjusted for inflation, and when I say adjusted for inflation, I took how much it cost in Nevada, looked at the cost of living in Nevada compared to Hawaii, which is about half, so I just doubled it, about $500,000. So you need about $500,000 per slaughterhouse to make more of them. If you have more of them, people can then bring their kills to the slaughterhouse and have them processed. Now you can sell them. And when you can sell it, that's when it really comes to life. There's only 8 of them right now, but that's the bottleneck to make that more uh, accessible. And so that's what it looked like in Hawaii. In LA, you would grow more things that are native to the desert. Like mesquite trees with the big
Hmm.
old thorns, the
Yeah,
seed pods they
yeah.
drop. Those are edible. You can
No.
grind those things into flour. You just grind them up and you have flour. You don't got to roast them. It's literally that tree rains food. And everyone just kind of forgot that this tree that's from the area literally rains flour and you can just eat it. Prickly pear, you can make candy out of the fruit. They're delicious. They taste like pears. And those plants are fucking indestructible. They're an invasive species in Australia. They had a whole thing where they like basically went to war with this thing because it won't die. Like there's the manzanita, little manzanita bushes all over the place. The manzanita is how you say it in English.
Yes,
Like a
yes,
bush.
yes,
Manzanita is the Spanish word for little apple. Those berries are
yes.
edible. Make
They have a they have a drink out here.
Yeah, exactly. That's you need more of that shit right there.
Yeah,
Um,
I went to high school in the desert, so I
yeah,
spent 3 years out there. And when you go hiking, there's actually these trees that have these little white flowers, and if you wet them, it turns into soap. I can't remember the name of them, but
probably
I
called
remember.
soapberry or something, but yeah, exactly like that. You
Yeah,
use the local shit to make
yeah,
shit for the locals. Like it just
yeah.
kind of makes sense. What else is there? There's so many. There's ironwood is good timber for that kind of thing. Saguaros aren't native to your part of California. You're in the Chaco region, more fire country. But you see where I'm going with this. And
Hmm.
if you're gonna bring in, if you're gonna for meat, you use breeds of animal that are better adapted to the desert. I mean, shit, I'd fucking say bring in camels. If I could wave a magic wand, do whatever I want, and be like, eat the camels. Camels are delicious. I think
Or
I
or,
love
or
camels.
hyenas,
No, the
coyote.
what?
Oh no, you don't want to eat hyenas.
You do
Uh,
not want to fuck with a hyena. Them things are one of the most
what about
nightmarish
I'm
beasts.
not running
what
a hyena farm, that's for sure. And
really?
Yeah,
What about like a coyote?
you can eat them. It's not a lot of meat, and they don't reproduce as fat. predators and omnivores don't taste as good as herbivores. The plant-eating
They
animals,
reproduce very slowly. We wouldn't be able to maintain a population. That's kind of the
they're also way too smart.
question is these are all good and well, but do they scale? Does it
Yeah,
scale? You know, like will if we start eating the prickly pear out the valley, there won't be any prickly pear left? Or are we
no,
doing
I don't. I
something?
really no. I don't think you'll have that problem. Prickly pear grows stupid fast. It grows everywhere. You can also eat the pads. That's nopales. That's what
Yeah.
they like. Yeah, the Aztecs created not just the Aztecs, but like Mesoamerican people created like hundreds of varieties of nopales because it was that scalable. Like it was one of the base foods of their like culture because it doesn't die. It just keeps growing and grows very little water. You can literally just grab a pad and throw it on the ground, like literally just throw it on the ground and it will grow a new plant. You don't even got to bury it. It helps, but you don't even got to bury it. Like so, it is absolutely scalable, especially in the desert. The um the mesquite trees are native, so they're just going to grow there naturally. So like that's also, and it's a seed, it's a fruit, so that is absolutely scalable. The coyotes aren't really scalable because they're too smart and you're not going to get a lot of meat. Camels, probably, I don't know, like the people in the Middle East have been raising them for thousands of years. I'm assuming it's scalable. If it didn't work, they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Or goats. There's plenty of desert goats that would do really well out there. Um, but get away from cattle because cattle need a lot of water and a lot of grass to eat, specifically grass. You want things that can eat where you're living.
Yeah.
So you don't gotta like reinvent the wheel every time. And you know what I'm saying? Like so that's what it looked like in California. Probably some seafood too. You got the ocean right there. Kelp
Yeah.
farming. Yeah, hold up. You gotta hear about this kelp farming thing.
Oh, I've heard a lot.
So yeah, dude. So kelp grows off the coast of LA.
Yeah, we have
Kelp
too
is
much.
Yeah, kelp is edible, dude. That's
Hmm.
nori. You can eat that shit right out of the water.
Yeah, my wife eats it all the time.
Dude, yes. And here's the crazy thing too, is you got a crop, it needs no land, no water. You like when you farm it, you literally just put a rope out there on like buoys. Then you put a little seed kelp on it, and then it just grows. There's nothing. It also absorbs, those fertilizer pollutants we were talking about that run off into the rivers and into the ocean. They absorb those because it's a plant. So it cleans the water. It requires no inputs, and you can eat it right out of the ocean. Like, and then when you dry it, you get fresh water out of it. Like this, like
Yeah, it's
why,
true.
like why don't we do this? You know what I'm saying? And again, it's native to California, so like you could literally just set the shit up and it fucking does its own thing, and environmentally friendly. It checks all the boxes and it's delicious. I
Yeah.
love, I love seaweed. Anyway, but like so that's what it'll look like in fucking California. Like you see what I'm saying? Like all this shit is good. It's just not what you're used to.
Right.
And here in Missouri, it'd be like a lot of like standard shit because this is where the American diet kind of came from. Here, you can grow apple trees and cattle. I'd rather do buffalo because buffalo have different like grazing habits and they're a little better for the land, but they're
Or
kind of
like bison.
yeah. Bison is fucking delicious. Bison tastes like cow.
I like bison.
It's like cow but better. Now you can't farm them joints though. Like them, you can't.
They're
It's not.
untamable.
Yeah. It's also like twice the size of a fucking cow. It's twice the size. Bad at it. They're not even mean, bro. Just like if you try to get them in, they have like mega claustrophobia because they're from the plains. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? They ain't never seen a wall. So you put them in a box and they start getting screwy. And when this thing is twice the size of a cow, you don't want it getting screwy because it's gonna kill you. So it's tricky. But like but like here in the Midwest, this is where the normal American diet makes sense
Mhm.
because the shit grows here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And even then, it's so you'd have some variation because there's also like some local stuff here that's super edible that'd be better grown. But for the most part, like the stuff you're used to eating is from here, so you should eat it here.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So
You
that
mentioned said it's not what you're used to. And I think that's kind of what the crux of the problem is on an individual level is that,
Yeah,
we have
people
a
are spoiled.
population of culture. Like everybody eats burgers, everybody eats hot dogs. The major companies that control the media, When I say that, I mean that they're the people who have the most money to spend on advertising, and they sell, monolithic products. So they want as many eyeballs as possible. They have the most eyeballs, and so they're selling everybody the same stuff. And the localized diet, it would be easy to convince people to eat these delicious local foods, right? But it's like if you grow up, you've traveled with someone where you get to Europe, and the first thing they want to do is go to McDonald's.
Yeah, not me.
It's enraging, bro. Fuck that.
It's infuriating. Everybody hates that guy. Like it's because of the way that we're kind of trained. Like a lot of people are
the program.
Exactly. They're literally programmed, and that's intentional in order to sell to people who are selling these, who are buying these products. So that's going to be the hard part, right? It's not just the capability, like you said, T. A lot of this stuff it's like, why aren't we doing this? And it's not because it wouldn't work. It's because how are you going to convince people who are used to eating and living a certain way to change that, especially when things like climate change and all the other things seem esoteric, they seem far away,
Well, the nice thing about climate change is it's not so esoteric anymore. Like it's like I don't know about y'all, but like I've been here in Missouri, it's like winter here is light. I'm like, this is like Houston winter. This ain't shit, to be honest. So
something's wrong.
But yes, exactly. So it's becoming much more obvious. And the short answer to answer your question is slowly. The answer is you got to do it slowly because food is very personal, obviously. So it's hard to change that. But also, bro, lobster used to be prison food. Y'all know that?
Yeah.
They used to feed lobsters to prisoners in New England because it's a giant fucking sea bug. Nobody wanted to eat that shit. They'd literally give lobster to prisoners in like Massachusetts and up there. Like people wouldn't fucking touch it. And the way you make lobster look edible is you take off all the legs. When you see it on screen, all you ever see is the tail. The edible part you eat. You don't see it's fucking horrifying face. You don't see it's got like 20 little fucking feelers for a mouth. It's a nightmare. It's like a video game creature, but it's delicious. That's funny. So like, or like sushi, dude. In our own lifetime, when I was a kid, like no one ate sushi. Sushi sounded disgusting. Like you eating raw fish. What's wrong with people?
Yeah.
And like now sushi's huge. I love sushi.
That's my wife every day.
Dude, I've had sushi for breakfast several times. I fucking love it. But yeah, so the answer to your question is it's slowly, and you got to do it just at a local level, bro. You got to bring people food and be like, try this, it's good. I'm not gonna charge you for it. Just fucking try some. And then when they realize it's good, then they eat it. Yeah, exactly. Also bugs. Bugs are really good eating people. Nobody wants to eat. There's a thing, feed to like meat ratio, which is like how much feed you got to give an animal to get back like a pound of food. For cattle, it's like 17 or 20 pounds of feed for 1 pound of beef. It's something crazy like that. For fish, it's like 10 to 1. With bugs, it's like 2 to 1. So like insects make great feed. But here's the thing: is like I'm not saying you serve someone up a platter of roaches. Like you're not like no, we're not doing that. I'm talking like the big thing that we go for is animal feed.
Like crickets?
Yeah, dude. Like you could grow bugs and then use them as like fish feed for like salmon. Because like the big problem with farming like fish farming is you know what fish eat? They eat smaller fishes. So you still got to fish like thousands of pounds of fish out of the ocean to feed the salmon. So it defeats the purpose. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you know what they also love? They love bugs. Yeah. So like you get like black soldier flies are a species of insect that can eat damn near anything organic and turn it into edible protein. And like actually they're the things in my backyard eating the dog shit. They will literally they're maggots, they're big, they're horrifying to look at, but they make good protein. And like even I would kind of be fishy about eating one of those things. I'm obviously not eating if you're feeding it dog shit. But you know who don't care about that? Fish. Pigs. Pigs don't give a shit.
Pigs eat anything.
Exactly. So you grow these maggots as protein, you dry them, turn them into powder, and you mix them in a fish feed or pig feed. And in that way, you close the loop. Now you found a way. This magical, disgusting little bug has made it possible to turn any kind of like turn garbage into animal feed, and now we've closed the loop, and now you can like grow. Now you can have your pork, and not it's not damaging the environment anymore. Then you can take that pig shit and feed it right back to these fucking flies and get more protein out of it. Like I swear to God.
Yeah.
And the craziest thing is like when they shed their skin the last time, they leave like when they're ready to pupate and turn into flies, they leave the food source to go bury themselves in the earth, and then they shed their skin. So like they literally when they leave the food source, they shed all the part of them that was touching it. So when they come out clean, like through their own natural processes, they come out free of the animal shit. So like you can then literally just dry them and make them an animal feed. Like it's like magic. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what I
Well,
mean by like bugs are an underutilized source of food, not just for people to eat, but as animal feed for the things we want to eat.
now flies only live two days, right?
Depends on the fly. These guys live like a week or two. And when the adults don't have mouths, they exist only to find something to mate and then to lay eggs in something rotting. That is their only purpose. They don't even have a
Uh-huh.
mouth.
So those
Like
are the vultures.
kind of, yeah, like bug vultures.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So you guys have anything you want to close with?
I think I'd like to end with is we're not doomed. Like there's solutions to all of our problems, and I know it's scary. It's like the news is a new thing. Never in human history you've been able to see everything happening everywhere all at once like this. So it's not good for your brain. No part of your brain was meant for this level of exposure.
Hmm.
You can watch anything happen anywhere at any time. That ain't natural. You're burnt like I saw this thing that was like, hey, I'm sorry I didn't respond to your text. I was busy watching the world burn with a brain designed to eat berries in a cave. And like so like it's there's solutions to all the shit, and we're gonna be okay, but it's gonna be rough.
Yeah, I still think Mother Nature takes care of things. And
Yeah.
if we destroy it enough, it'll destroy us. And I I talk to my kids too, because my kids are 12 and 9. But I tell them, you know, if you get rid of us, the bees and the ants and what have you will thrive. And they don't overpopulate. If you have if you get rid of the bees and the ants, we die. And I explained to them like if we pollute and change the molecular structure of the air, like percentage wise, we die. But once we die, everything's gonna go right back to where it was. And even the concrete will crumble back into dust. And once that happens, uh like the earth itself, that concrete that we covered the dirt with will restore itself, and trees will, restore and come back, and the earth. That's what I mean by like Mother Nature. I think we'll make ourselves extinct, and whatever else comes up after us hopefully is less selfish. Like we can't be the most intelligent thing out there and then we're just this dumb, you know? Like I just think there's too much of ego.
Yes, at the moment there is. I dropped something in the chat real quick.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
trying to pull it up.
no, you don't got. It's like a 20-minute video, but it's
Oh, okay.
so it's about this thing. The short version is they this group turned a barren moonscape in Saudi Arabia into a dryland savanna without heavy machinery. It took about 10 years, took a minute, but they using like regenerative ag principles and permaculture shit. They when you see the start of the video, like it literally is like a moon. There is nothing. There's not even dirt. It's just rocks. Like it's a moonscape, and they turn that into a grassland.
Mm.
And like in a place that gets 2 inches of rain a year. And like when they're interviewing the locals, they're like, yeah, there used to be trees here. There was trees here, and then everything, and then a bunch of political things happened and all went to hell. But the point is, that it can be done, and it's a you get kind of emotionally at the end of it because it's like, you look at this moonscape, and then by the end of it, it's green, and like the birds come back, the bees come back, animals come back. Like the land can be fixed, and you don't need like space age technology to do it.
Right. Right.
And So yeah, it's
Thank
called
you.
the Albaida Project, and I gave you a link because that's hard as hell.
Yeah, I pulled it up already. Thank
Yeah.
you.
But
Yes.
it's super inspirational, man. And you ever feel like we're all gonna starve and burn and die? Just watch that and be like, if they can make shit grow with 2 inches of rain in Saudi Arabia in like death itself, then I
Right.
think we'll be okay.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I appreciate you guys coming on and the knowledge, and I mean honestly, like to me this is just a great example of people. I know like you two know each other, Malaman and I know each other, but we don't know each other as a group, and it shows like you can just have the ideas. I call ideas like the seasonings of the food, you know. Um, and I think it's a beautiful thing. So I really appreciate it, your time and your knowledge, because I'm learning, as well. And I can spread this through, like I said, I see kids all day long.
Yeah,
So,
do that, man.
so
The
that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us on.
It's been a
And
pleasure. We should do it again. I'm game.
yeah, if you ever guys want to ever do it again, let me know.
All right.
All right, you guys take care.
All right. Good night, boys. See you next time.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Later.